Welcome to the Riff. Today, Jeremy and Justin sit down to walk through what to do when a bad day hits you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Riff today. Justin, we have some listeners.
I hope.
Well, yeah, we don't technically know if we do.
No, but this is fun. Just you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we do have listeners, we want to say thank you. And if we don't, that's all right.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And
All
thank
right.
you for listening.
You're welcome.
So,
All right.
what are we doing today? Today is one of those,
We're going to riff today.
we're going to riff.
Yeah.
That's why we call it the Riff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk about, we have a thing called North Point Isms, and it's for.
Ooh, you're going like behind the curtain on
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Like Oz.
Okay, like the wizard?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
That's exactly
All right,
right.
the doctor.
No.
Or is he the politician?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, let's go with the wizard.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've got a thing we call North Point Isms, and it's a thing that we've got on a sheet of paper, which is where you usually put a list.
Yeah.
And it lists out all of these different ideas, maybe attributes of staff, maybe attributes or something that we hope for, that we see within the culture of North Point.
Yeah.
If you work here, if you volunteer here, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
There's one on there. And it has been talked about.
Okay, now time out. Before we get in there, I think we need a little more context here.
Okay.
Because
All right.
our vision at North Point
Yep.
is to create a safe place for people to find and follow Jesus. Right? So we have different ways we want that to happen and values we have, but we also have a staff culture. We have what we call our 5 H's, right?
That's true.
These are our staff values. Now, they're not necessarily North Point values,
Right.
Though I think North Pointers value them, but these are the things we want all of our staff members to experience in their interaction with each other.
Yes.
We call the 5 H's, and some of it is from
Lencioni.
Lencioni, the three H's there. We got hustle, humble, hungry, helpful, hopeful.
That's right.
And so hustle is, I'll give you a quiz. You want to do a quiz?
Oh, I
We're riffing.
love
Okay, what is
quizzes.
hustle for our
Hustle,
staff
we
culture?
look at hustle as getting the job done, right? Making sure that you are 100% running. Like
Yep.
we're going to, if we're going to work, if we're coming to work, we're going to work.
What I like about that is our staff is we aren't overstaffed, right? And so when you look at church stats, when you look at the Dream Center, there's so much to get done, and we have a lot of volunteers who help make this mission possible. So those who, for whatever reason, have an opportunity to do this for a living, we want to make sure we're getting after it. So,
right.
okay, that's hustle. Hopeful.
Hopeful is we are not pessimists.
Okay.
We are making an eternal impact with everything that we do. And we're always going to see Jesus in it. So we're always going to be hopeful. We're going to be hopeful in any situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I think the challenge is it doesn't mean we're always going to be Pollyanna thinking, but as a staff, we want your experience to be like, okay, the people around me are working hard and they're fairly optimistic. Okay?
And the ism that we're going to get into wraps around that one a little bit. But keep going. Keep going.
Okay, helpful.
Helpful is it's never not my job, right? So I'm going to look around, and that doesn't mean you don't do your job and I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
But it means, hey, I'm going to help you out. Like we're a team. I got your back, and we're going to get through this together.
So on a staff, that would mean someone in the Dream Center says, hey, we can utilize some more help for this event tonight. We say, let's do it. Who can do it?
jump in.
Or vice versa.
That's right.
And then we've got humble.
It's humble.
Well-
It's humble. Silent H. Humble.
Yeah.
It's not a silent H, actually. Humble.
Well, I don't know. Here's the deal. I feel like arrogant people call it humble. And so
all right.
we'll call it humble.
Okay, all right.
Not Texas.
Humble.
What does humble mean? Humble mean for our staff?
I'm not gonna hold my ego tightly.
Yep.
It's not about me.
Yep.
It's about others.
Now that's one of the values we always talk about at North Point, as Arrow's pointed out, same type of thing. And the last one there is hungry.
Yep.
And
We're
for us,
spiritual leaders. We're going to continue to be hungry for Jesus leading us and becoming a follower of Him.
Yeah. We're never perfect, but we're never done
right.
is kind of the idea. And, we're a Jesus-centric organization. And whether we're working at a Dream Center or we're working at a campus, whether we're making it all happen, we don't all have 100 things we all have to believe about the end times the same. So we're kind of unique on that. But ultimately, what binds us together is this vision that Jesus can transform a community, and we want to be part of it. So, okay, so those are our five values. And we say this is true, we don't always live out all those five we aspire to.
Yep.
But what we try and really make clear is if we ever break those 5 H's, and you ever feel like your interaction with a staff member and isn't honoring that, it's worthy of a conversation. No matter the hierarchy of the organization, no matter the structure, we try. We want this to be something all of us are bound by. But then within that culture, we have these North Point isms that there's sayings. A lot of them are pithy, but they kind of capture how we do things as a staff. Pithy, like short.
I don't know if I used that in the last month. Yeah, but I like that.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. So I think you'll probably start using it. A pithy saying.
Yeah.
Pithy saying, a lot of times gets a negative connotation, right? Like, because it could be like, it's a short, cute way to tackle a hard problem.
Okay.
Like, trust God and let go, right?
That's a pithy statement.
That's a pithy statement.
Yeah.
But we have these pithy sayings to take these values and say, okay, easy to remember. So
a couple of them. Arrows out.
Arrows out. That's
one
a
of
pithy
ours,
saying.
right? Eat the frog.
Eat the frog, which means...
if you're going to do something hard, just do it first. Just
Yes,
get it over with. Just
eat
go.
the frog.
Yeah, right?
So,
Just go for
pithy
it.
sayings. Things that we can remember that all of a sudden we have stories and we have examples that kind of capture our culture.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the one you brought up. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Bring up the ism.
This one is leaders can't have a bad day, even on a bad day.
Ooh. Leaders can't have a bad day.
Or afford to have a bad day.
Yep. Even on a bad day. I was going to say especially.
Especially on a bad day.
Okay.
Okay, so
I love that ism. I love it.
Okay,
Matter of fact.
great.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so I think I do too, right? I do too.
You don't have to.
No, I do. I'm not just saying that. I do. Yeah. On the surface level, I don't know if I do.
Okay.
Right? But I do, right? Because I know what it means. I know what we're trying to get after. But I think on a surface level, I think you can read that. And I mean, communication that I've had with different staff people, conversations
Names.
that I've been. Yeah, no,
Right
I'll
now.
send you a name. There's actually there's a Post-it note on your bag on your way out, and you'll understand. But the conversation is, as you walk through leading teams, or you walk through parenting, or you walk through any situation with another human being, I think vulnerability is key. And I think being able to see the other human as a human just like you is vital for relationship. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's the only way that you can actually connect with somebody is through, a great message you gave a couple weeks back on empathy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way that you can truly connect.
Yeah.
So something like that, a saying like a leader can't have a bad day, especially on a bad day, on a surface reading, I think can give the idea or come across in a way as just smile, because you can't have a bad day today, okay? So hold it in, and we're going to get through this. Don't talk about the hard stuff. I know everybody's having a tough day, but it's not a tough day, guys, okay? We're going to because tomorrow is a new day, and the Lord's blessings are many. Like, it can come across in that way, right? So I want you to walk through that pithy saying. For the organization, I also know that it's something that you do within your family as well. So I'd love for you to kind of touch on it on both sides of how do you do it in like a work setting, but also how do you do that in a life like family setting?
Okay, so I would start with this. I love the fact that we have team members who on the surface wouldn't like that because of the fear of what that might communicate. Mm-hmm. And because the culture we're trying to create is... let's be inspiring leaders. And vulnerability is a big part of inspiration. People are impressed by your strengths, but impacted by your weaknesses, like you said. So why that's, and it's come up for years, and we just did a teaching on isms. And so there's more of these conversations that come up. And why I think every time it comes up, it could be a wrestling match for a staff member, someone who knows our culture and breathes our culture, loves our culture, guards our culture. Could be this fear of, are you saying we have to fake it to make it, right? That seems empty, that seems shallow, that seems opposite of the culture we're experiencing and uninspiring to follow.
Yeah.
So let me start by saying, I don't know that, the value is not that saying. So maybe that saying isn't communicating. It takes too much background to be able to communicate the principle. But even with those conversations, at the end of the day, I'm like, it's probably one of my favorite isms, because leaders can't afford to have a bad day, especially on a bad day. What that means to me, and why I made this one of our isms, is I feel like we're all going to have really bad days. We're going to have tough days. Leadership is the awareness that what I do, I'm not an island unto myself. Christian leadership is, we don't even say leadership. Christianity is understanding that as I'm following Jesus, the choices that I make and the words that I say have a big impact, not only on those who are connected to me, but those who are trying to see Jesus. I have bad days. On those bad days, that doesn't mean I don't have bad days. What that means is I can't afford to be sloppy, especially when I'm having a bad day. When I'm having a bad day, I'm more vulnerable to not reflecting the love of Christ, the strength of my faith. And I need to be very careful on my bad days that now this is when good leadership really kicks in. So we have that. You mentioned we have that as our family. So our family, we have our family mantra, our Johnson way, is what it means to be a Johnson. And one of them is this deal, is bad attitudes do not equal bad days, right? Or bad days do not equal bad attitudes. That Johnsons can't afford to have bad days, especially on a bad day. And it doesn't mean we don't have bad days. And it doesn't mean if one of our girls or I have a bad day, we're like, name it, claim it. You're having a great day, praise the Lord. It's not ignoring the fact that you're having a bad day. It's saying, okay, you're having a bad day right now. You're really disappointed in somebody right now. Now you have that responsibility to be very careful with what you say on your bad day, with how you react on your bad day. Let's say, let's make it real personal, is if I'm traveling, okay, and I'm in a weird environment and I'm struggling with temptation in the environment and I'm not feeling faith-filled, I'm feeling tempted in my marriage and I'm all by myself and I have opportunity across the street to do something stupid. That would be called a bad day, that I'm not feeling faith-filled. And that's what I would tell myself. Listen, you're not feeling very faith-filled right now. You're feeling tempted right now. You cannot afford to have a bad day on your bad day. So this is the time where you step up and you do not let your vulnerability turn into damage to those you love and to the faith that you have. When you've got the alarms going off because you're disappointed in somebody, you read that email that's hurtful, you're sick, whatever it might be, and you realize you're having a bad day, that's when you need to not fake that you're not having a bad day. You need to take very seriously, I cannot sleepwalk through my next steps. So if I'm having a bad day at the office, if I'm a poor leader, I'm going to now lead in such a way where everyone around me, I'm going to vomit toxic conversation all around. So it's not ignoring the fact that I had a tough conversation, that I'm struggling right now. It's making sure I'm not unfiltered, because unfiltered doesn't mean fake. Unfiltered understands what I have to say and what I do has consequences. So real quick, here's an example of it. Okay. Recently in the news, I was fascinated to see the story of a guy who flew down to the Bahamas on a fishing trip. And so he had a pilot that he had hired, didn't know the pilot, and the pilot had a best friend. The two of them were in the plane, and there was just three people in this little Cessna. They fly down to the Bahamas for the fishing trip for the day, and then they're going to fly back from the Bahamas. I don't know where in the United States, somewhere in the Southeast the guy lived. So anyway, that's the way they roll on their fishing trip. They're flying back, and the pilot turns to the two of them in the passenger seats in the back and says, "Hey guys, I got to tell you, I'm not feeling well right now. Like, I'm like hazy."
Would you never want a pilot to say that?
No.
I've never.
No. Like, if you
No.
think about that, that's a scary deal. Having a pilot having a medical situation, he says, "I'm starting to feel dizzy. I'm feeling really weird. I want you guys to know that." And there's 3 of them in there. Only one of them knows how to fly a plane. This is the one they paid to do so. And all of a sudden, the guy collapses, slumps over, and the plane starts nosediving. And this guy, and I would say that's a bad day. That's a great example of a bad day.
Right.
I have not had one of those bad days, but he had a couple options. Could be like, oh, he'll wake up, right? Or I'm under the Lord's anointing and protection. Nothing bad can happen to me. He realizes in an instant, this is a bad day. And this bad day has the potential to get really worse, right? He jumps up to the front and grabs I don't know if it's a wheel. He grabs the flight instruments.
It was a joystick, an afterburner.
Yeah.
So,
You've had an Xbox.
Yeah. So
and so,
Yeah.
and starts hitting control command, XXXYY, and pulls the plane out of a nosedive. And he's just instinctively understanding, say, okay, I probably need to do this. And he can keep the plane in the air. He moves this guy who's collapsed and unconscious out of the way, jumps into the pilot's seat, tries to grab the headset, but the wires are frayed, and he can't get communication. He doesn't know how to fly a plane. So they're flying over the Atlantic Ocean. They don't know, he doesn't know how to read where he's going. He doesn't know if they're going to live, die. As they get their way closer to what he finds out, he's going the direction of Florida. He sees this dust, a speck of dust, goes towards it. It becomes land. He doesn't know where it is. Turns out it's Palm Beach, West Palm, Florida. And he starts headed towards there. As he gets there, he gets radio connection somehow, and he's talking to a tower of the guy who's there at West Palm Beach, and he says, he's talking to the guy, and the guy's like, okay, what's going on? He's like, we had a medical emergency. I need to get this plane down. I don't know how to land a plane. And so this guy is talking him through how to do everything. And they're practicing up and down in the air. Like, you're going to have to turn the flaps on. You're going to have to do all these things. It's going to be very important. Just focus on this. And the guy coaches him, and he's able to land this plane. So then he's on Good Morning America, the next week, and they're talking to him. They're like, did you freak out? How come you didn't call your wife and tell her you're going to die? He's like, if I didn't have time to call my wife, we were going to die. And I thought the only way I have a chance to talk to my wife again is if I step up and give us best shot to be able to land this plane. And he goes, so afterwards, as soon as we were done, I was like, oh man, that was so scary. I had the longest prayer of my life. I'm so thankful. The pilot, by the way, was able to make a recovery, and he saved the lives of 3 people that day. And to me, that's an example of you can't afford to have a bad day on a bad day. It doesn't mean you ignore the bad days happen. It means when you see a bad day's happening, you're aware of it in the middle of it, and you don't allow it to now have a domino effect that you lose influence and opportunity, or you do damage to those you love because you're reeling from your bad day. Catch it, figure out how you need to land the plane today, and then you have plenty of time to recover, learn, cry, get therapy, whatever you need to do, but don't let a bad day escalate and become more tragic than it should. So to me, now, maybe we need to take it back to marketing and figure out how not have to have a 20-minute conversation to make this make sense, because the last thing we want of our team value is fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. The last thing is denial. That's not what we want to be. We don't want to be those kind of leaders. We don't want to value polished, perfect leaders. That's not it at all. It's the opposite. Mm-hmm. It's saying we are all going to struggle, and we know that, but we're going to trust ourselves in the struggle to minimize the damage so that we can learn to live to lead another day. And that's what we need to do as leaders. And I would say for a lot of people who are listening, some of you are in the middle of a bad day. Some of you are in the middle of a string of bad days, and you're probably tempted to make some bad decisions in the middle of your bad days. That's how we absolutely bankrupt our integrity. That's how we bankrupt our relationships, is when we compound bad days with bad decisions.
And I think that just from sitting with you and walking through this quite a few times over the past few years, I think that there's a difference between having your bad day lead you and leading your bad day, right? So I think there's that too, because I've had definitely a string of bad days in seasons, and I'm not saying I don't have them, Right. So I hope that the ism doesn't say to people, I don't talk about it. Just don't just, it's a good day. It's a good day, right? So fake it till you make it.
Right.
I think that people can talk about it. I think you can be open about it. I think you can be open about this is what it's doing to me, right? This hurts, but you can't stop there. Like you can't just sit in it and be like, oh, or you can't go negative with it. And now I'm yelling at my kids.
Right.
Like, what? Like they didn't do anything. My bad day is now leading me to us. And how do I take my mind and then transcend that bad day, right? While completely recognizing, completely being vulnerable with it, letting people know this sucks.
Yeah.
And here's how we get to tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Like there's that piece of it, right? There's that piece of, that's the leadership piece to it. And that's what I hear from you. Like, how do you walk through those pieces? So tell me a time in your life that you've had to do that. So you've given me kind of those examples, but give me something from Jay Johnson.
One of the maybe ways we do it is say embrace the suck but land the plane. That might become the new ism. and then North Point is like, what does that mean? It's like, well, you got to hear the story, right? And so yeah, but anyway. Okay, so like today right now, we were just talking before we came on, is today I'm going through a bad day, right? Now the day's early, so plenty of time to turn around because I'm hopeful. But I've got enough evidence to believe that, man, the challenges that we have, right? So tonight we have a big night where, it's a big to the mission of North Point. For us in this situation, it's a fundraising opportunity. And I've got anxiety about, are we going to have the opportunity to raise what we need to keep the mission going forward? And I've got some evidence that shows maybe not. And there's so many other things going that demand attention and time that I don't know that I have the time to be able to be at my best between now and when this event happens tonight. But the people who show up tonight need me at my best. They need me at my best. In order to get there, I can't just crash between now and then, okay? So what I have to do is I have to say, okay, despite the challenges around me, what is the importance in front of me? How do I land the plane? And about 8 o'clock tonight is a time where I'm probably gonna schedule this on my iPhone, pout. At 8 o'clock tonight is go to Andy's. Andy's has blackberry concretes. This might be my night to get a blackberry concrete. I will whine, but if I do that
with wine,
depends on how long you leave the blackberries out, probably. But
did you say I will whine?
I will whine.
Okay,
I will whine. Okay. But if I decide to whine at 7 o'clock when I have a microphone in my hand, it's a little less inspiring, right? Because everyone feels bad for a victim. No one wants to follow one. So I mean, it's true with our families. It's true with our organizations. So bad days. Another example in the life of the Johnsons is, man, one of our worst days was when we were raising littles, and we had run out of money. We had no more money. We were spending so much money on Children's Hospital at the time. Janaea was going through a bunch of medical stuff. We didn't have any more money, and we were just stressed and tapped. And so we had this meltdown because we had just got this report of, we don't know she's going to live till she's 7. That's it's way bigger than any parent thinks they're going to have to deal with, right? So we had the meltdown. We did. We sat on a couch and we boo-hooed and we prayed and we cried and we were mad and we pouted, and all those things were real. And then at the end of the day, we say, okay, here's the deal. We are woefully aware that we can't control how long she lives. That sucks. Now, what can we control? How much life is in every day. So while we don't know how many birthdays we're going to have, we're going to start getting busy on this next birthday party. And it wasn't us living in denial. Right. It was because we're aware of the vulnerability that now we are going to live with hope. Yeah. And even in counseling, they have acceptance, commitment theory where a lot of times we stiff-arm death. Anxiety is 80% of anxiety connects somehow to our own death. And we're trying to avoid death. And this makes me anxious because what if this makes it more vulnerable to die? And when you can finally realize, I'm going to die. I can't stop it. Now I can't let that control my life. Now how will I now live? And a lot of terminally ill patients, they go through this, and the end of their time is the most meaningful time, because now instead of being afraid of it, they're gonna take advantage of it. So again, embrace the suck, land the plane, and I think that's inspiring leadership. Jesus was like, he's like, man, is there another way, God? This sucks. Like, seriously, it's like me getting nailed to a cross. And he goes, if there be any other way, that'd be awesome. Yet not my will, but yours be done. And he wasn't denying, he was sweating blood, right? Which, who knows the interpretation of the Greek words and what that means nowadays. But even if it literally meant he was sweating blood, that's a medical condition of anxiety, right? It really is. It's an extreme deal. Yeah. So maybe it was this extreme anxiety. Maybe it was he's sweating like blood. The importance is this. We know Jesus was having a pretty bad day.
Yeah.
It's important that he didn't just hightail it and get out of there and say, I don't want to face this. He says, okay, what do I got to do? This is going to be a tough day. I got to do it. So
embrace the suck, land the plane.
Land the plane.
I like it.
You kiss the ground later. Kiss the ground later. I don't know. We'll figure out a good ism, because it needs to be pithy.
Oh, it does need to be pithy. I think we need to walk through all of them and give them a pithy rating.
Like I've failed as a friend that you didn't even know what the word pithy meant until today.
Here's the deal.
Because I think half of my vernacular is pithy.
I think that I have failed because I think you've used pithy, and I haven't been vulnerable enough to say I don't know what that means.
That's probably the case. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for walking through that. I think it's helpful, man. I think it's helpful. Whether you're in work life, whether you're in family life, whether you're in just life, you're all gonna have bad days.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen, right? So what do we do with those?
And Christianity is not this parade of people who are void of bad days.
Yeah,
Christianity is this platform upon how which we respond to bad days. That's what it's all about, which changes our theology. It's the theology of pain and suffering. Is the fellowship of suffering is how we are knowing Christ, it says in Philippians. And so if you're going through it right now, we don't wish that upon you, and we don't minimize that, and we don't deny it. I pray that through God's help, you would be able to land that plane. And when it's our turn to grab control of the flight controls, that we would do the same.
Awesome.
So, okay. Thanks for listening. If you are, if you're not, well, next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. Submit a question for the podcast at northpointchurch.tv/podcast. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.